Can Wolverine's son turn a child Apocalypse into the newest villain for the X-Men? Welcome to the Complete Story Series, where I bring you trade paperbacks and single issues, and I break them down into digestible bites to help you understand. Then I read it dramatically back to you. All alterations to the panel, text, and images, they're to prevent copyright problems, and all art is owned by its respective companies. This has been a long journey, guys, but we are finally at the end of a 7-volume with side stories series following the Uncanny X-Force. I wanted to mention something that I forgot to mention in the last episode. This last chunk of the story is taking place during a period in which Deadpool has lost his healing factor and had his cancer cured. He's a normal person right now. It's kind of important here, but it's more important in the arc for him that was happening at this exact same time. But you just need to know that's why he looks normal, and that's why he can't heal. In our last story, the X-Force had just returned from the future, where the idea of preemptively killing potential criminals was normal, and Psylocke was the head of it all. The Brotherhood of Evil Mutants had finally gotten what they wanted in the present time. They got the child Apocalypse. As the X-Force returns, they learn that Evan has been taken, and it's time for them to move out and end this once and for all. It's another day in Kansas for Evan, as he plays catch with his Uncle Cluster. His uncle tells him about Insaba-Nur, the first mutant on Earth, and how they were selected to ensure mutants would flourish and become the dominant species. However, Apocalypse's duty was stopped by the X-Men. When the X-Man Wolverine learned of a reborn Apocalypse, he formed a team known as the Uncanny X-Force to kill him. However, that monster was still just a boy. Evan wants to know more about this. Did they actually kill him? And his Uncle Cluster turns away and walks back inside. As Evan follows, he's told to go wash up for dinner, and as he does, he asks, "Why was I never told about any of this before?" And as he looks in the mirror, he sees himself as Apocalypse, and then the Shadow King in the door telling him, "Because Uncle Cluster was the one who shot you." Soon, Evan awakens from his dream, and he finds himself in an RV with Daken, Sabretooth, and Shadow King welcoming him back to reality. Evan tries to use his eye blast, but the Shadow King tells him that he's a powerful telepath equal to that of Charles Xavier. So, if he doesn't want Evan to use his abilities, well, he won't. As the RV drives on, Daken stops at a gas station and Sabretooth gets out. And Daken says to Evan, "If I told you that Sabretooth is going to kill everyone inside unless you killed him first, would you?" Evan runs out telling him, "I'll find another way!" But as Sabretooth enters the store, deciding which one to kill first, Evan fires his eye blast, knocking Sabretooth away. Sabretooth lays on a broken shelf and he says, "He held back, so this woman pays." He then punches through a woman's stomach, and Evan jumps on him ready to fight, ready to release his powers, but he hesitates. Sabretooth grabs him, telling him, "That's what I figured, so whoever I kill, it's on you." Soon they head back out and Daken tells him, "Preemptively killing? That's tough. Your dads are hypocrites." And Evan says, "They aren't my parents." And Daken says, "Right, about your parents." Our next stop is, Evan hits the Shadow King telling him, "No!" And he jumps out of the moving RV and he begins running towards his home. But when he enters, he sees Sabretooth and Daken already there with his parents murdered. He begins to fire his eye blast, blowing up Sabretooth and Daken, launching them out of the house. And as he gets outside, he sees the two are not dead, and he begins to fight them. But just as he knocks Sabretooth away, Daken jumps in from behind, slicing Evan up in the back, and then his chest. He tries to fire again, but Daken just dodges and slices at Evan's chest again. The anger inside of Evan grows, and he grabs a hold of both Sabretooth and Daken, telling them, "I will crush you!" And then he stops and he tells him, "But I won't be like you." Daken tells him, "That's some pretty good self-control. But there's some good news and some bad news. The good news is, they weren't actually your parents. The bad news is, well, your parents never existed in the first place, kid." At this time, Logan and the rest of the X-Force return from their time travel adventure to find Deathlock. And Wade tells him, "You know, the last time that I met you, you tried to kill me within an hour." Deathlock tells the team about Evan being kidnapped and the plan to corrupt him. He then tells them that he'll take care of the Automaton, but he wanted to leave X-Forces one thing: beware of vengeance, for it corrupts those who live to enact it. Later, Evan sits in a room telling himself how he loved his parents, but it was all a lie. Uncle Cluster's lies. Headmaster Logan's lies. Good people couldn't. Daken and Sabretooth, they told him the truth. He is nothing more than a science experiment cloned from a boy Uncle Cluster murdered. Maybe he should be the one to hurt the liars. Moments later, Uncle Cluster comes running in, calling out for Evan, and then as he hugs him, he sees the blood. As the body falls, Skinless Man tells him, "Surprise! Uncle Cluster is still dead." Evan knew him as Uncle Cluster, but actually, he's Fantomex. And then behind Skinless Man and the corpse of Fantomex, Daken tells him, "That was really screwed up, man. Look, I know you're pissed, kid. So that suit right there, put it on. It'll amplify your powers and make you into a god. If you put it on, you can get your revenge." The suit he's looking at is the Apocalypse suit. Daken and Skinless Man then leave Evan to think, but as they walk out, Sabretooth pulls Daken aside to make sure, "You've still got it in you, right?" Logan never respected you before, but now he will. He's gonna be hard to kill, but you can succeed where the others have failed. Sabretooth continues to tell Daken how Logan pampered this Evan kid while leaving him his only real son in the shadows. So now it's time for him to rise. He deserves a father who loves him. A short while later, Sabretooth visits Mystique as she gets out of the shower, telling her that they need to talk, away from Shadow King and the others. But as she asks him for what, he tells her, "Be quiet, he might be listening." The two of them leave the underwater facility, and Sabretooth tells her that he thinks they have a problem. Shadow King may have been listening on her murderous thoughts about him. He worries that the Shadow King is using Evan for himself, and if that happens, they're all in for a bad century. Mystique tells him to just come out with it. I can smell the lies. What the hell do you really want, Sabretooth? And he tells her, more about what we want. And then Psylocke drops the illusions and says that they need a few minutes alone with her. As Psylocke looks through her mind, she tells everyone it might be too late. Sabretooth seems very confident that Evan will crack. Logan tells everyone not to worry, he's a good kid and he won't go dark. But Nightcrawler says, Evan is being tortured and the Shadow King is in his mind. We need to be prepared to kill that child, or we will lose your world. Elizabeth tells him no. But speaking of all of this killing, why isn't Daken's name been mentioned? Logan argues, it's not that simple, he's my kid. Psylocke turns to ask Wade where he stands on this, and when everyone looks, Wade is gone. Back inside, Evan looks at his suit and then he hears a voice behind him telling him, I couldn't do it the first time around. And as Evan turns around, he sees Wade holding a gun at him stating, but now I can. Back topside, Wolverine and Psylocke make their way down into the underwater facility where Evan is being held. But deep down inside, Wade tells Evan, hurry up, we have to get you out of here. And Evan asks him, why should I trust you? Aren't you just here to kill me? But Wade tells him, what I am is some kind of unhinged psychopath covered in guns and swords. However, I'm one of the good guys. Daken and Omega Black appear at that moment, and Wade tells him, listening in is super rude. He tries to escape with Evan, but as he runs, Omega Black catches him with her tendrils, and she begins to pump him full of cancer toxin. Wade begins to fight back by cutting off the tendrils, and he jumps behind Daken, firing his gun into him. Blob begins to run after Wade, but as he rolls underneath him to his backside, Omega Black begins to attack again. Except this time, Wade jumps over Blob, causing him to be the one injected with the cancer toxin. As he lands, Wade draws his sword, telling Daken, you killed my friend. Prepare to... Blah! Evan and Shadow King stand over him after being shot by one of Evan's eye blasts as he tells Wade, these people told me the truth. They could have killed me, but they didn't, Wade. Elsewhere, Mystique begins to wake up from Psylocke's attack and finds Nightcrawler watching over her. She tells him, you're not my son. And he tells her, yes, actually, I'm from another place. The two begin to talk as Mystique asks him how she was in his world, and he tells her that she was a hero. She's dead now. She then asks him to tell her about the world that he's from, and Nightcrawler tells her that it was a world where her companion Blob killed his wife, and the world was then ravaged by the same beast that they planned to corrupt, followed by Weapon X. Mystique then asks if he's here for revenge on the man who slaughtered his wife. Well, she can give it to him. Back down in the facility, Skinless Man and the rest of the Brotherhood discuss how the others are going to be coming, and when do they think that Wolverine's gonna be here. Sabretooth asks, what are you, dim? And as he looks up, Wolverine bursts through the ceiling and Sabretooth says, he's already here. Wolverine begins to swing at Sabretooth and then he grabs him and slams him into a terminal next to him. But the feral berserker begins to come out and Wolverine begins to knock Sabretooth away. Omega White runs in, but Wolverine kicks her in the head, breaking off parts of it. Wolverine then tells himself, I need to find Evan. But as he goes to leave, Skinless Man grabs him in place. He quickly turns, pulling himself closer to Skinless Man, and he stabs him in the gut. And as Logan lets go, Omega Red tries to attack. Just as the tendril hits Wolverine, he grabs it and pulls him close, slashing away at Omega Red's chest. Wolverine then hears Sabretooth telling him, it was a bad move to come here alone, and the two of them begin to struggle. Elsewhere in the facility, Psylocke begins making her way through trying to rescue Wade, but along the way, Shadow King can hear her talking to Wade in his mind, and with her mind open, he begins his onslaught of her on the mental scape. As Psylocke begins to open up her eyes again, she doesn't see the facility. Instead, she sees Shadow King. Back with the computer room, Logan beats down on Sabretooth when he hears Nightcrawler and Ava bamf in. Wolverine says that he told him to wait outside, but then Ava stabs Logan in the neck, and then he sees Ava begin to change into Mystique. Nightcrawler tells him, I'm sorry, but I came here to have my revenge, and I will do it by any means. As Wolverine begins to wake up from Mystique's poison, he sees himself tied up to a table, and Daken asks, hey, would you like a drink? After pouring the two of them a drink and drinking all of his, Daken slams his cup back down, stating how watching him act like a hero has always made him feel bad, and he began to hate the very thing that he was genetically intended to be. Wolverine, though? He can murder people and still call himself a hero, a teacher, a good guy. And he hates him because he's being true to what he is. But Wolverine tells him, I don't hate you. I'm actually sad for you. But what they're doing now, they won't get another chance. If they die, they will stay dead. And this is how he wants it to be between them? He's got love for him, but really, he's got it all wrong. making it such a damned mess. The two of them sit in silence and Daken pours himself another drink, asking Wolverine, have you ever wondered what it would be like if you had raised me? If you had really been my father? It was at the age of 7 that I started to kill. Wolverine tells him, it should have been different for you. I'm more sorry than you know. But Daken says, well, to regrets. Back in the lab, Omega Black beats down on Wade until Daken calls her to go ahead and bring them the boy. As they leave, Wade tells Evan, don't listen. You gotta believe me. We're the good guys. Over on the astral plane, Psylocke continues to fight against Shadow King, but just as she strikes him down, she tells him that she will make him suffer inside of her mind, jailed, but she won't kill again. He tells her, such a kind gesture. And then he reaches back up and strikes her, and he asks her, how will you make such choices when your psyche's been shattered? Psylocke opens up her eyes in the current time and begins to wander, and then she asks herself, where am I? Who am I? Over in the aquarium, Blob walks out asking why Mystique wanted to meet here. Does she want to ride on the Freddy Duke's Cheese Doodle Express? Then step right up, babe! Then, from behind in the shadows, Nightcrawler appears telling himself, this is it. I betrayed those people for this. He leaps from the shadows, swinging his sword at Blob's gut, but Blob smacks him away, telling him, sorry, but nothing gets in unless I want it in. Just ask most of your wife. As Nightcrawler hits the glass, it begins to crack, so he bamfs out, grabs a shark, and then he asks, still hungry, my friend? Nightcrawler then teleports the shark inside of Blob, and then teleports back outside, stating, Linda sends her regrets. And as the shark begins to eat the Blob from the inside out, he falls over in a pool of his own blood. Another figure appears, then stating, you had your revenge. Now it's time to pay for it. Back in the room with Wolverine and Daken, Daken says that he's made a few good points about everything, but he sees that he's already past the point of no return. Dad. A trapdoor beneath Wolverine begins to open up, and then he falls into a tank of water. And when he looks out the window, he sees Daken and Evan. Water begins to fill the tank, and Daken asks, you know the secret to killing Wolverine? It's simple. You drown him. And then he turns to Evan asking, would you kill me to save Wolverine? When Evan doesn't answer, Daken punches him. Evan doesn't fight back, and Daken grabs him, stating, fine, you can watch Wolverine die while he watches you. And after a while of watching, Omega Black brings Evan back into the room with Deadpool. Evan struggles and tells him, we need to leave. He's drowning Wolverine. He's crazy and he's gonna kill us all unless we stop it. Deadpool tells him, if you do this, it's gonna end so badly. You have to stop. But Evan asks, stop? I've only just begun. Psylocke continues to walk through the halls trying to remember who and what she is, but as she begins to calm down, she finds a mental knob. She is Elizabeth Braddock. She is Psylocke, and she put herself into a state of self-amnesia to escape the master plan. She just needs to remember to never do that again. Before her, Omega White runs up carrying Omega Red, telling her that this is all her fault. Now it's her turn to suffer. Elsewhere, Nightcrawler walks back to the corner as Ava tells him that he deserves to die for what he did. All of his piety. Nightcrawler teleports as Ava swings, but as he reappears, Ava turns and stabs the same spot, impaling him. Ava says that he jeopardized their world. He is a selfish coward, and he says, I had to make sure I got him, but hopefully one day, they will learn to forgive me, as he teleports away. As the facility begins to burn, Evan follows Skinless Man as he tells him, come on, be a sport. Skinless Man then grabs a jar with Phantom X's heart in it, telling him, look, let me go and you can have Uncle Cluster back. Evan looks at the jar, and as he reaches for it, Skinless Man crushes it along with the heart, telling him, okay, that was my last joke. And then he hears a voice telling him, bummer. Deadpool appears, stabbing Skinless Man through the neck, telling him, I just butchered the punchline. Evan then asks, how could people be this horrible? And Deadpool tries to tell him, calm down, calm down. And Evan stands up shouting, how could people be this decayed? Elsewhere, Shadow King begins to escape, but before he can leave, Omega White appears, stating that he killed Braddock. He was a fool to let her break free. Omega White then grabs Shadow King by the head, telling him that Omega White eats psychic energy and begins to absorb him into his mind. As he finishes, Shadow King sees Psylocke standing there and he demands that they finish on the astral plane. But she just psychically punches through Omega White, stating that she just erased the artificial mind. So, now he can stay locked away forever. After freeing Wolverine from the tank, Deadpool gives Wolverine mouth-to-mouth to wake him up, and he tells him, Evan, well, he's gotten a bit angry, Wolverine. Wolverine says, go find him and Psylocke and get the hell out of here. Evan continues to walk through the halls, destroying everything when he sees Psylocke run up to him, stating that they need to get the heck out of here now. But Evan just backhands her away, and on the floor, she changes back into Mystique. Evan tells her, you're a bad person, you set this up. But before he can strike her again, Nightcrawler teleports in, telling her, come, mother. There's nothing left for us here. Up topside, Wolverine looks down as Daken is laying in the rubble of his base, and Daken tells him, good, you got out. It's better this way. Wolverine leaps down, slamming Daken onto the ground, and the two of them start swinging at each other. And soon, Daken begins to gain the upper hand, slamming Wolverine's face into a wall. Daken tells him, "Quit holding back!" And with one final lunge, Wolverine slashes and grabs him, holding his head down in the water. Daken begins to wonder what his life would have been like, growing up with a father. How different would things have been? How different would he have been? And then the thoughts stop, and Wolverine lets go. He looks down at his son, dead. But while holding him, Evan talks to him and tells him that this was the only way this could have ended. A little while later, Evan begins to carry Wolverine back to Ava with the others, and he lays him down to rest. Psylocke watches as the facility begins to blow up, and then she looks at her sword. Ava begins to take off, and what's left behind is her sword. And as Wolverine lays there, he thinks to himself just how it would have been if he had been there for Daken. As time passed, things slowly began to get back to normal. Evan went back to the Jean Grey school, and then one night, while Evan was reading just before bed, he hears Wade asking, "Hey, what you reading?" He tells him it's on meditation, and then he asks Wade if he thinks sneaking up on an apocalypse is really a good idea. And Wade tells him, "Never refer to yourself like that, kid." Evan begins to say how he has that evil inside of him. And Wade tells him, "Yes, you fought it. Even if everything was a lie, Phantom X raised you right. What I'm really trying to say, kid, is I'll be here for you if you need me." As Wade leaves, Evan tells him, "You still have my book?" And Wade tells him, "Yeah, meditation is for hippies, or psychopaths trying to be hippies. It ain't for you, kid. I left you something that you'll like much better." Evan looks down and sees that Wade left him a bunch of nudie magazines. Sometime later, over in Manhattan, Psylocke returns to her apartment and finds Wolverine and Ava waiting for her. She asks what she owes this honor to, and Wolverine says, "There's one complication that we have left." As they leave on Ava, Psylocke asks, before they teleported back from the future Wolverine whispered something to him before they left. Wolverine remembers back to what Future Wolverine said. Future Wolverine said that he didn't kill Daken. Because of not killing Daken, Daken killed all of the students in the school. Psylocke asks him again, but he still doesn't tell her what Future Wolverine said, and Ava announces that they are now at the White Sky. As they walk in, Wade tells everyone that he was wondering when they would come back, so he started pushing buttons or whatever. Anyway, it seems to be working. Capsule begins to open up, and out steps Phantom X telling everyone, "You've got to be kidding." Psylocke runs over hugging him, stating, "Jean Philippe." And then a voice tells her, "No, that would be me." Everyone looks and sees another Phantom X holding a gun, and Wolverine tells him, "We're not here to hurt you." And the other one tells him, "Hurt? How could he? He's already gone." And just like that, Phantom X disappears. Wade states, "I just got my head around the idea of one Phantom X, sort of. And what are we gonna do with Phanto Sexy over there? Because now there's also a female Phantom X." Phantom X asks Ava to explain what happened, and she tells him that they took his body to clone him, but it seemed that it cloned one for every one of his brains. He had 3 brains. The female Phantom X states that as they can see, the other one wasn't very nice, and Wade asks if she's nice, and she tells him, the nicest. Phantom X looks at Wade and asks, "Are you hitting on her?" And Phantom X looks back and asks, "What did I miss? Where are we off to?" But everyone remains silent, so he says, "Oh, we're done." Later, Phantom X and Elizabeth leave to the French Alps, and Elizabeth asks, "Where are they?" He tells her his home. There was someone that he wanted her to meet, his mother. And as his mother walks out, she states that she never met any of his girlfriends, so he must really like her. Psylocke asks if this is real, and he tells her maybe, but is anything? Maybe Shadow King cooked her noodle. Well, if it is, and she's in control, then just once, she would like to imagine a happy ending as the two of them kiss. And that concludes the X-Force storyline. Long saga, I personally really enjoyed it, but at times it got very confusing. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Chat with me about it on Twitter at Comicstorian and Instagram at Comicstorian, and I'll see you next time right here.